Hi, friends. Hello. Good night. My name is Alina Shaltsova. I'm a New York immigration lawyer. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the most recent immigration updates. I'm going to share with you what's happening in immigration courts. I'm going to talk about a little bit the new program that President Trump announced, Gold Card, H1B madness, what's happening with that. And of course, we're going to discuss a little bit California. So thank you very much for joining. My name is Alina Shaltsova. I'm a New York immigration lawyer. If this is your first time here, welcome. I practice out of New York, but I help people in all 50 states. Say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. And of course, like, share this stream and send your hearts if you're watching me on TikTok, and send your likes and stars if you're watching on Facebook. Don't forget to type up your questions so that in the end, I'm going to help you guys out and answer some of them. And let's start. So the first update concerns immigration court, and even more judges have been fired recently. More judges. It's been reported that 20 more judges have been fired, and affected states would be New York, California, and a couple of more states. But what's scary is this. You may have a hearing scheduled and you would not know if your judge was fired or not. And it's very important. Why? Because, well, the WebEx link may not work, right? The mode of the hearing may change with a judge change, or your hearing may be postponed, transferred to a different date, and you need to stay updated with regard to this. It's very important. So, hi, I'm Warren from Cambodia. Nice to see you here. Hi, I'm here from Pakistan. Welcome, guys. Thank you for joining. So, you have to stay updated as to what's happening, right? You need to know what's going on with your hearing. Of course, if you have a lawyer, your lawyer is most likely is going to stay on top of the case. If you don't, you have to regularly log into EOIR system and check what's happening with your case. Thank you very much, Drum Mantle, for your roses. Thank you very much, guys, for your gifts on TikTok. So, as you see, things may change. You may think that you have a master hearing and you don't have anything, or vice versa. Your date may be far away, and you think, well, I'm going to just live in the United States and I have until 2029 before my hearing happens. And then you're going to find out that your hearing is within 6 months because a new judge took over your case and they have time for you, right? Unlike the previous judge. So please stay on top of your cases. Again, your lawyer is going to watch out for that, and of course also log in into the system. The good news is that EOIR, Immigration Office, Executive Office of Immigration Review, updated rather their payment methods, their website, and now you can pay for motions, for certain applications that you have to file with the immigration court through that website, which is actually more convenient. The only thing that I've noticed that's very interesting is this. When I went to EOIR website, I saw that the application fee for cancellation of removal is listed as $1,600. But if you try to file it defensively with USCIS, $1,600 will be rejected, and you will have to produce a check for $1,630, which includes, what do you think it includes? Okay, that's right. Your fingerprints, biometrics fee. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with this EOIR situation and how you're going to be paying for biometrics, but you need to know that it's not perfect. Again, your lawyer will be able to address that and walk you through this situation. But I think overall it's a good thing that now we at least have, something, because people were super confused. They didn't know where to pay the fees, right? I spoke about the firing of the immigration judges, right? We also need to discuss a little bit as to what's happening in California. If you're watching from California, you need to know that things are happening there, very interesting things. There is a conflict between local laws, California laws, and federal laws. What happens is this: California passed the law saying that masked agents that are doing immigration enforcement in California cannot wear masks. California passed the law saying that there is no enforcement in courthouses. But guess what's happening? Federal agents do not observe it, and they already stated they are not going to care much about those no mask policy. Okay, again, interesting. It just shows this rip that we have in our system, where we see that states, sanctuary jurisdictions are in conflict with the federal government, right, with regard to immigration when we talk about immigration. So, another couple of things I wanted to discuss. I actually published videos, uploaded videos about those announcements on my TikTok and YouTube over the weekend, but why not? Gold card. If you have $1 million and you would like to move to the United States, you no longer need to worry about business plans, how to hire workers, things like that. You can just file an application, pass the background checks, and pay $1 million, and you're going to get something called Gold Card. According to the Trump administration's website, it's going to be very similar to EB1 or EB2 category of green cards, and you will be able to live in the United States, I guess, move your family. The announcement is silent on that, but I would think that for $1 million, you should be able to. Your dependents, like your spouse and minor children, you will be subject to tax laws in the United States. And if you want to avoid that, if you want to just live in the United States up to 270 days and not being subject to tax laws, then you need to save up and file for something called Platinum Card. Well, Platinum Card's details about the Platinum Card program have not been published yet, but there was just this general announcement that it will be available. Interestingly enough, that people who actually would be interested in this gold card opportunity, I think they excluded, guys. I'm talking about people who overstayed their visas, have very successful businesses in the United States, and they would just want to be legal, right? And it seems that they won't be able to use this program unless we're going to receive more information, right? People who overstayed, because according to the announcement, you have to be admissible. And if you overstayed and you are in the United States and you accumulated unlawful presence, you are not admissible. Maybe the administration is going to address this issue and will allow certain immigrants to file for this opportunity. I do not know. We are going to see. Finally, H1B. Did you follow the H1B announcements? What's happening with that, right? So on Friday, President Trump stated that from now on, anybody who would like to enter the United States in H1B status, their company rather, would have to pay $100,000 to the United States government. And people panicked, companies panicked, nobody knew what's going to happen. The announcement stated that this rule is going into effect at midnight, and is going to be in effect as of 21st of September. But on the 20th of September, USCIS published a new announcement saying that yes, this rule is going to apply, but it's only going to apply to people for whom petitions are going to be filed after September 21st, 2025. Who are we talking about? Well, only people, I guess, who are going to be in the cap exempt category because the rest of the people had to file their petitions for this coming fiscal year in February, right? March, April 1st, but they were preparing from February. So basically, this announcement, this proclamation doesn't have this bang effect that everybody was afraid of. It's more or less useless, okay, for now. And not even to, we're not even discussing the fact that it's probably is illegal because all these fees must be authorized by Congress, and no Congress authorized this 100,000 fee hike. Okay, so that's what's going on with this H1B situation. And now, if you guys have questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. Type them up. Let me know where you're watching from. Again, don't forget to share this stream. Send me your hearts if you're watching me on TikTok. And let's start. Let's see. Hello, guys. Добрый день. Let's see. Hi, kids, lovely place. I have my second interview soon. Marriage. The first round was separate. Any advice? Whoa, even during the first interview, they separated you guys. It means you have to be prepared very, very well. I'm not sure, I do not know what jurisdiction you're in, but what's going to happen is that most likely the government is trying to challenge the fact that you have a real marriage or legal marriage. Real marriage is when you are in a bona fide marriage with this spouse. Legal marriage is when the marriage that you entered cannot be recognized under the laws of the United States because you're married to somebody else, or your spouse is still married to somebody else, or at least you cannot prove that you divorced that other person. Sometimes this situation is going to happen when you filed for that visa to come to the United States, you put on your DS 160 visa application that you were married, but you were not married. You either lived in a common law marriage or, you were simply not married. And now the government, of course, has access to those applications. They always check them when they are adjudicating green cards based on marriages. And if they review the paperwork and find out that you stated you were married, they either going to deny you I-130 because you couldn't prove that you could legally marry your US citizen spouse, or they will accuse you of fraud. Second option is actually better because at least you have a possibility of fixing your status with the waiver. Hi, sweetness. My husband's case was moved from Nebraska office to, I guess, service center. Does it affect the processing time? I wouldn't be able to tell you, to be honest. You would need to check USCIS processing time for your husband's specific type of a case. We do have, the government does publish USCIS processing times for various locations where they adjudicate cases. Okay, sometimes it makes it actually faster. Hi Malik, if you got marriage and not filed yet, and ICE comes to you and you have no longer status, you'll be placed in removal proceedings in this situation. But if you can adjust, if you can get a green card in immigration court, that marriage still may help you because you will be filing for that adjustment of status, but now in immigration court. The only difference would be is that it's going to be longer and a little bit harder because the first part of the case, which is I-130 portion of the case, will no longer be filed together with your application for the green card. It will have to be filed separately with USCIS, and you will have to wait for USCIS to adjudicate that part. All right. Hi, Shanice. Can someone on welfare help someone obtain a green card? Sure. If we're discussing family immigration, yes, they will be able to petition for their family member, but most likely, if they are on welfare, they will need a joint sponsor by the time the person is ready to get that immigrant visa. Okay. Hi, Arab Turk 69. I applied I-130 on, I guess, September 5th, 2024. Do you know when I could get the approval? Honestly, I wouldn't know when you may be able to get the approval. If you're sponsoring somebody from Yemen, it's going to take a very long time. If your person is not in Yemen, then it's going to be much faster. And we also need to know who exactly you're sponsoring. If it's a spouse or a child under 21, it's going to be pretty fast. If you are only a green card holder, it's going to be 3 years. So I need to know your status and which family member you're trying to sponsor. Okay. Thank you guys for your hearts and likes. Thank you for sharing this stream. What are your thoughts on traveling with a green card? You know, guys, typically you have no worries. You should have no worries. If you have a green card and you do not have anything pending, you do not have any and have not had any criminal arrests, you should be totally fine. Just make sure you're not going to be staying out of the United States for longer than 6 months and that you don't have and never had any criminal record. Hi, Edgar. My I-360 is approved yesterday. What is the next? How long to my green card? Edgar, if you filed for your green card already and it's pending, it may take up to a year and a half for the government to adjudicate that I-45 after they approve your I-360. Okay, so it may take a long time. Let's see, guys, from YouTube. Hi, Ronaldino. I have a green card and I was sent to secondary inspection when returning to the United States. Is there a way to find out why I was flagged? Most likely, if you were not told why, the government is not going to tell you. But here are the clues. Number one, criminal arrests in the past. Okay. Number two, complicated immigration process. Maybe originally your green card was denied, you were placed in removal proceedings, and you had to fight for it in removal proceedings. So that happens. Number three, child support issues. Okay. I've never heard of taxes being a problem, but those three, I would say those three are the main reasons usually. All right. Something in your immigration file related to the way you received the green card, child support, and of course criminal arrests in the past. So what questions you were asked? You would have a clue, right? They usually ask you questions, they ask you to sit down and wait. So maybe, if you share more information, we would narrow down the possibilities for you. Okay. Thank you very much, Jamal, for your nice words. Hi, Rob. I'm a US citizen and I want to apply for my sister. So if I need responsible, should to be when I filled the form or later? If I need to be, all right. So the process of sponsorship for your siblings starts with I-130 form. And if you're asking about affidavit of support, that comes into play much later, 10 to 12 years later, when your sister actually going to be applying for the immigrant visa in the consulate. Okay? So don't worry much about the affidavit of support right now. It's going to be asked of you much, much later. And by then, if you have the income, great. If you don't, you will have to find a joint sponsor. All right? Somebody who's a US citizen or a green card holder and who does have enough money to be the joint sponsor. So let's see if we have more questions. Hi, Dungan. Nice to see you. How are you? I'm doing well. Thank you, guys. Let's see. I'm going to read this question in Russian because it was posed in Russian. Хотел спросить у вас, я с семьей приехал по рабочей визе, журналист, подал на А-589, уже 2 года ожидания интервью. That's normal, actually. So the person came in with their family and they filed for asylum and they're waiting for 2 years to be called for an interview, that's a very common situation. You should be able to have a work permit, у вас должно быть разрешение на работу. Yes, it's totally normal, это абсолютно нормально. Вам еще, может быть, даже повезло, потому что, скорее всего, вас позовут где-то через год, через полтора. Есть люди в Америке, которые ждут этого интервью 10 лет. There are people in the United States who are waiting for affirmative asylum interview for 10 years, guys. Yep. Hi, Rips Holmes. I'm a visitor. I want to divorce. He's outside the United States. Which state court not require residency? He's missing. I would not know, Rips. It depends on the jurisdiction. Typically, a foreigner may get a divorce in the United States, but what happens is that you would have to show that you have been residing in the United States for some time. Okay. And which jurisdiction would not require that? I really do not know. In the United States, typically each state has their own rule about that. So in New York, you would have to reside in New York for some time before you are able to file for divorce. Okay. Even if somebody is overseas, you can do that, but you have to be able to attach the jurisdiction to New York. Okay. Hi, the chosen one. Can someone get denaturalized years later if the government finds out that they're already a derivative citizen? Denaturalized years later if they are already a derivative citizen? I've never heard of that. I'll be honest. So a person obtained their citizenship through naturalization, but they really qualified for automatic citizenship. Why would the government want to mess with it? It just doesn't make any sense because the person is already a citizen. I don't know. I don't think they will be doing that. Okay? If the person lied, because what happens here is this. It means that there was a mistake made at the time the person's application for citizenship was granted, right? So that's what it means. But the person then will not lose the citizenship because they're already a citizen by birth. So why are you asking about this? What worries you? Tell me. Because I just don't see any practical situation, like realistic possibility of that happening, you know? Is the asylum process still working? Yeah, of course. People are being called for the interview, and absolutely, yes, of course. Hi, Alex. I'm a citizen now, but had some violations in the past. Should I be afraid? If you had violations of law, criminal charges in the past that were not disclosed during your citizenship process, consult with an attorney, okay? Consult with a lawyer to see if they may present a problem. It's only in this case scenario you may have issues, okay? If you had some violations, some charges, but you either obtained a waiver during your immigration process or you disclose them, then you don't have to worry about it. And your application was granted. You don't need to worry about it. Okay. Are you an attorney? Yes, I am. I am an attorney. Yep. All right. Hi, Chrissy, attorney. How can I request voluntarily departure? All right. So you are in immigration court proceedings, right? And you feel that you have a weak defense. You may not win your case, right? Or you have a different way to get status, but for that you have to be overseas. Then it would make sense for you to ask for voluntarily departure. There are two kinds of it: pre-conclusion and post-conclusion voluntarily departure. It's an application before the court. Not everyone will qualify for it. For example, some people statutory disqualified for it. Why? Because there is a benefit in voluntarily departure. The benefit is that you will be allowed to leave the United States, depart without the record of being deported. Hence, when you want to come back, you will not have to worry about that order of removal against you. So you have to apply for it. If we're talking about pre-conclusion voluntary departure, you have to show you have a valid passport, you have money to go to whatever place you want to go to, and you have to ask the court to grant that relief. You also have to show usually that you do not have any criminal convictions. So you but have to present results of self FBI self background check. And then if the judge grants it, they can give you up to 150 days for you to leave the United States. And you will not have an order of removal against you. But you need to know about something else. ICE may request that you post a bond, some money, that will be returned to you upon proof that you actually left the United States, right? So you ask for it in court in writing, you present your documents. Usually a lawyer is going to help you. I know it's kind of funny because what happens here is that um, even to leave without receiving that order of removal, you have to spend money on a lawyer, right? Or on a bond, and you have to ask for the judge's permission for that. Yes. All right. I have less than 2 years in the United States and I have a nice appointment. Could I postpone it, please? Oh, honestly, there was a way to ask for your ICE appointment to be rescheduled. But recently, I feel like none of the tools are working. And letters that we send to ICE, nobody replies to them, you know? Mhm. I have to tell you that also it depends on your request, if you want to postpone it or not, depends on how you entered the United States. If you entered with a visa or parole, under current situation, in current state of events, you will not be subject to mandatory detention. But if you entered without inspection, then of course you may be arrested. Actually, this is the category of people who are getting arrested a lot, especially in certain jurisdictions. So talk to a lawyer, see if they can reach out to ICE if you have a good reason to postpone, do that. But remember, the government now says that regardless of how much time you spend here in the United States, if you entered without inspection, they may still arrest you. That's the Board of Immigration Appeals case, matter of Hurtado, I think, right? I have a video about that. So, all right. Hi, Rip Holmes. If I came on a B2 visa in 2025 and applied for asylum, if I refused, will I be caught by ICE? What to do? Right. So the way the process works in the United States, if you entered legally and you filed for that asylum case, you first have to go through affirmative asylum interview, an interview with asylum officer. And on my website, if you visit the website, I actually have pretty good explanations about the process, and you can download our free guide, asylum guide, that tells you what to do and how it's going to happen. If you are denied at that stage, you will be referred. They don't call it a denial, they call it a referral. You will be referred to court. And in court, you will be able to ask for the judge now to review your asylum claim de novo again. Of course, the judge is going to have your file from USCIS, and the judge is going to have access to USCIS officer notes. But technically, they're supposed to look at your case as if they're seeing it for the first time, de novo. Okay, so you're going to have another chance. If you have a good case, you should fight for it. Okay. Okay, asking because I'm a derivative citizen, but I applied for N400 by mistake. They naturalized me anyway. Welcome to the United States immigration system. I wouldn't be doing anything about this, I'll be honest. So make sure that they did make a mistake. Sometimes you think that you're a derivative citizen, but you're not. I mean, can somebody file for naturalization if they want to? It's an interesting question. I think what happens in this situation is that they would deny you, right? Because I've seen denials like that. And they would ask you to instead file for certificate of naturalization. All right. because in certain situations there is a difference how exactly you obtained your citizenship. All right, in certain situations, most people are not going to face those situations. Hi, Kiara. How long until VAW and I-45 receipts to get back? It's been 5 months. Yep, it's going to be a very long time. Sometimes even longer than 5 months. I'm not sure what's happening in Vermont Service Center. I think, if you remember, guys, several months ago, there were news that people got fired from there and there was no like technical support. So maybe that's what happened. And they just don't have the manpower to process what they need to process. I do not know, but it does take forever. Hi, Bobo Sweets. My mom has filed I-730 for me, but some time back I was denied a visitor visa. And has, and what happened? We don't have the rest of the question. But denial of the visitor's visa should not affect by itself your ability to come to the United States as a derivative asylee. Okay. Hi, Frank. Any updates on those whose asylum was dismissed by USCIS and referred to ICRO for credible fear? And what happens when they go there? Will the interview be scheduled instantly? Usually, no, the interview is not scheduled instantly, and your lawyer should try, if you want to, um, ask for the interview. And some people are not detained. When the attorney is asked for the interview, credible fear interview, and it was provided. But I heard that many people do get detained. What happens is that, dismissal of the asylum case places these people into a different category of cases and different subject to different type of removal proceedings, and they do get detained. I think that a federal lawsuit class action is being planned about that, but honestly do not know if it's going to be filed and when it's going to be filed. All right. Path divergence. What are you seeing with how field officers are implementing the new good moral character standard? I do. We've had a couple of N400 interviews since the announcement, but we were not affected by it in any way. Why? Well, for starters, I advise my clients to bring evidence that they do have a good moral character. So the officer really did not have any issues. We have not received yet oath ceremony appointment letters, but the officer just this week, for example, did indicate for one of our clients that they recommend the application to be approved. Okay. So, not a big deal. Nobody knocked on my client's door. But remember what the announcement said. They said that they may do it. It's not that they will be doing it in every single case. Yes, it depends on your file, really. Okay. All right. Hi, Huri. Parole is a southern border. During the Biden administration, is USCIS still processing their adjustment of status cases? Yes, to my knowledge, I have not seen any denials yet. Okay, and hopefully I won't see them. All right. Hi, Kelsey. Can those who are out of status apply for 1 million green card? I just spoke about this earlier, so we do not know. The announcement says that you have to be admissible to use that, but I feel like it doesn't make any sense. I'll be honest, because this would be perfect way to allow certain people who have the money, and obviously they earned their money in the United States, but they still don't have status to finally get it. So we'll see. I hope the administration is going to come up with some sort of exception or waiver that you can file for. All right. But for now, we don't really have clear answer about that, unfortunately. Unfortunately. Let me answer some questions from TikTok. The reason why I'm worried is because my parents were naturalized when I was like 16. All right. So the chosen one. I do not know how old you are now. You would need to verify it with an attorney. But for you to become a derivative citizen when parents are naturalizing, you have to, under the most recent set of rules, okay, You have to reside in the United States in a green card holder status, in a physical and legal custody of your parents. All right? So, on the most recent set of rules, but the rules were changing depending on your age. You would have to verify what set of rules would apply. Hi, Ashley. What is the wait time frame if detained and you sign a voluntarily departure? Oh, if you are detained and you would like to file for voluntarily departure, usually if you're detained and you don't qualify for bond, you're subject for mandatory detention, they're not going to give you voluntarily departure. All right. It's only if you like say that I agree and I want to be deported, you sign the order of removal, and then the government deports you still, they deport you themselves. They don't allow you to leave from custody. Okay. All right. After the refusal from court of asylum, what can I do to stay more in the United States? All right. So if you lost everywhere, right? You had asylum case. You filed it with USCIS. They referred you to court. You fought honorably in immigration court and you lost it. You can file an appeal with the Board of Immigration Appeals. If you don't have a high profile case, it takes years to receive a decision, like 2 years to go through the process. If you do have a high profile case, they go into process it very fast. All right. So it depends on the case that you have, but for the most people, it's gonna take a long time. Okay. Happy holdings. Gold card replaces CB1 and the B2 program. I have entered recently to the United States, and can I file green card application now? No, it doesn't replace those programs. I think it's in addition to those programs. Again, it's something that has not been authorized by Congress. I'm not really sure how it's going to work, but can you file for this opportunity? You can certainly submit your inquiry. Absolutely. There is a website, and it seems they are collecting the applications. You will have to submit also a non-refundable application fee. I do not know how much it is. The website doesn't say it, or at least it didn't on Friday. When was the last time I checked? And after they process your case and tell you that yes, they would take you, you would have to give them $1 million on top of it. Okay, that's how it works. And once you do, you are going to get that gold card. All right. All right, let me answer one last question for tonight, guys. And of course, if you would like to meet with me again, don't forget to follow my social media, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. So we're going to meet again. Let's see, SH. My husband comes, hold on, what does it say? My husband comes through border last year. He came through the border last year. Now you're married. You're married since 2021. We applied there on 3945. They called us to the interview in March. Still no answer. I'm a US citizen. Oh, SH. If your husband entered the United States through the border, what do you mean by that? If your husband does not have parole or visa admission at the border, most likely he will not be able to get a green card in the United States. All right. So I'm not sure how exactly he entered. It seems that you guys got married prior to him coming to the United States. I'm not sure, right? If he came through the border last year, but you were married in 2021, last year was 2024. So, did you have a lawyer when you filed that case? Did the lawyer explain to you that for your husband to receive green card in the United States, you have to comply with the certain requirement that the person has to be admitted or paroled? And did they ask of you guys to show that proof? If they did, then everything should be fine. But if the case has been pending since March with no decision, I'm afraid something is cooking there. The government is checking something there, all right? And I'm not sure. He came through CBP1. All right, so CBP1 should count as the form of entry that the government should give you the adjustment of status for. What happened is that maybe why is there maybe a delay in your case? Because around the time when you guys appeared for the interview, Trump's administration announced that they will consider people who entered through this form of entry as not being legal for adjustment of status purposes. But later the courts corrected that. All right, not for adjustment of status purposes, but some other purpose, but I guess they tried to stretch it to the adjustment of status. So why don't you contact your congressman and ask them to follow up on the issue? Okay, because parole, being paroled, totally counts under the text of the law for the purposes of 245 adjustment of status based on marriage. A different situation may be is that your husband may also be in removal proceedings if he entered through CBP1. Your husband also may be accused of fraud if you guys were married and he asked for something else at the border. That's a different issue, all right? All right, guys. Thank you very much for tonight. It was a pleasure, as always. Thank you for your questions, for your gifts, for liking and sharing the stream. I hope that you enjoyed this show. If so, like and share it. Don't forget to stay in touch by joining my social media, and I hope to see you guys soon.